And so, boy, getting everybody in. Make sure that I get everybody in. Make sure I get everybody in. All right. And then for everybody who, oh, here goes Fonz. Oh, the CPT. Let's get it in. Let's get it in. All right. And then for anybody that is new, just to hold up, there go Mike. Just to like give like a disclaimer again, I will be recording. And it's just to have a record for, what we talked about. And if anybody wants to access any of the recordings that we do have, I do store them on YouTube. So you'll be able to go to YouTube, replay them. You can send it out to people, whatever the case may be. Again, just an overview of 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. It is a safe space. So what goes on inside this Bible study, I just want everybody to kind of be respectful of each other, respectful of each other's time, respectful of each other who's speaking, and then just be cautious that or conscious that other people do have a voice as well. And so if you are somebody who is more likely to like speak, be able to also usher in other people who can speak as well that you haven't heard speak yet, because I just want to be able to have everybody involved and be able to have a voice inside the conversation if we do have conversation points and stuff. And so I'm just asking everybody, if you are speaking, try to limit it to like 30 seconds to a minute, just so we can make sure, because we have a large group today. It's around like 17 and it can possibly get to like 20. And so I just want to be able to have everybody be able to have a voice. And then just a little background. Well, before I get to the background, we can go ahead and pray in. Let me see who I'm gonna have pray us in for today. Dia, can you pray us in?
It's so funny because I was like, dang, I feel like I'm gonna be the one he choose.
Of course. You already know.
Oh, okay. Everyone, bow your heads, close your eyes. Lord, I thank you for bringing us together on this Thursday afternoon to just be able to praise you and lift your name high. We thank you for just uplifting Jay and allowing all of our minds to be open to what he's teaching us today, Lord. If you change the world and you usher us into this new season of fall, we just ask that you continue to change our hearts and just uplift us to be the best people we can be, so we can bear good fruits and continue to spread your word. And in your son Jesus' holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. All right. So just a little background for everybody who hasn't been here on a day-to-day basis, or a weekly basis. We have been going through the book of Judges. For the last 2 weeks, we went over the book of Judges, and we had like a really good conversation from it. Just to give you a little context of what was going on in the book of Judges, this is around the time where the Israelites, the chosen people from God, the ones that Moses brought out of slavery in Egypt, or whatever the case may be, they've made it to the promised land. And now they're in this space of feeling entitled and feeling like they don't have to listen to God anymore. And so they have been wilding out. They've been doing their own thing. And through them doing their own thing, they've been upsetting God. So God allows things to happen towards them. And when things start happening towards them, that's the only time that they kind of call out to God and ask God for help. And through them calling out to God and asking for help, that's when he sent people called judges. And judges are like prophets, or like people who are just meant to help and save at that time. People that we could kind of consider judges in this day and age would be people like Martin Luther King, or like people looking like Obama, or whatever the case may be. The way that we kind of view those type of people is the way that they view judges at that time, and what they use the judges for. And so during that time, again, last week we kind of talked about Gideon, and with Gideon, we was just able to see how God was able to call somebody that was not qualified, was feeling like they were inadequate themselves, and he was able to use them for good. And so we're gonna pivot, and we're not gonna necessarily say stay in Judges, but we're technically are staying in Judges as well. I know it sounds weird, but we're going to the book of Ruth. And so for a little context of the book of Ruth, Destiny, I see you. For a little context of the book of Ruth, Ruth actually happens during the same time frame chronologically as Judges. So it kind of ties into the exact same thing that we're speaking on. But I thought that it was really cool to actually just be able to highlight Ruth because, you know, we have a lot of women inside the group as well. And so I just want to be able to kind of highlight and champion women that are in the Bible as well. We always talk about, you know, Jesus, or we always talk about Paul or Peter or all of these other great people who are inside the Bible, but we never really get a chance to highlight the heroes in the Bible that were actually women. And so that's why I want to kind of pivot towards reading about Ruth. And also, we've also been talking about how it's been kind of difficult for us to really digest books in the Bible, and so, or read the Bible. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been reading together these chapters or whatever the case may be, because I wanted to kind of be like a confidence booster for everybody. So you can feel like you're actually reading the Bible and you're actually understanding what the Bible is saying. And so Ruth is a short book, and it's a really dope book in the Bible. It's one of my favorites. And so today we're just going to go over the first chapter. It's only 4 chapters in Ruth. So if you want to go after this and read Ruth, we can do that later. But just to give you, again, a little bit of context of what's going on in Ruth, the themes of Ruth is kindness, redemption, and God's sovereignty. We'll be talking about those often when we're actually speaking about Ruth. And what's going on pretty much, and we'll read again, is this is in the time frame of Judges. And so I'm actually going to read the last chapter and the last verse of Judges so you can kind of get a context of what's going on at this time. You don't necessarily have to read this, but it's Judges 21:25. And it says or Judges 21 and 24. At that time, the Israelites left that place and went home to their tribes and clans, each to his own inheritance. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. So I thought that, you know, while we were reading Judges, it was just fitting because Judges is pretty much where we are inside a spiritual realm when we're thinking about just the day-to-day that's going on in 2021. It was pretty much echoing the same thing. And so people kind of took it on their own selves to say what was actually right, what was wrong. They wasn't necessarily leaning on God. They was more so leaning on their own understanding. And so we find this book of Ruth in the midst of that time frame again. And you have a family that is actually just a normal family. They were in Bethlehem. And so Bethlehem is like the city that they occupy. And they decide to leave Bethlehem because there's a famine going on. And so they go to another land and they try to make a living there. And so that's what we're picking up at Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. And so I'm going to break it up into 3 parts. You're going to have the first part be verses 1 through 5. The second part will be verses 6 through 18. And then the last part will be verses 19 through 22. And so I'm going to have 3 people read those 3 sections. We're going to read it all the way through, and then we're going to break down those sections afterwards and then get an understanding of what was being talked about. Everybody good? Everybody following me? Thumbs up if you are, or reactions. All right.
Can you say what book and verses again? I mean, just the book, sorry.
The book,
right?
So the book is Ruth. And so we'll be in the book of Ruth. And I'm reading out the NIV version. So if you can go into your Bible apps, if you have the Bible app, and go to the NIV version, we're going to read Ruth chapter 1. And this will be what we're talking about over like the next 3 weeks. Next week, I'll probably group chapter 2 and chapter 3 together, and then we'll close out with 4 later. And so it's just a really great story. A lot of times inside the Bible, in the latter end of the Bible, it was more letters that were being written to places. But I love these stories because they're actually narrative based and they're actually story based. We don't know necessarily who wrote the book of Ruth, but it's just chronologically this point inside her life. And I thought that was also really cool that God chose to use her story specifically to highlight. It's not a long story. Again, it's only 4 chapters, but the fact that it was so short of a book, but God still used it to be something that he wanted to talk about, I feel like it's way deeper than we can actually fathom. And so I'm breaking this up again, verse 1 through 5. Can I have Key read verse 1 through 5? Can I then have Fonz read verse 6 through 18? And then I have Madison end it off with 19 through 22, if that's cool with y'all. All right, everybody ready?
Yep. Okay. Ruth 1, verse 1. Naomi loses her husband and sons. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah, and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband.
Thank you.
All right, Naomi and Ruth returned to Bethlehem. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." At this, they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. "Look," said Naomi, "your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you will go, I will go, and where you will stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her.
Solid. Okay, and Madison, can you read 19 to the 22nd verse?
Yeah, I can definitely read 19 through 27. This is Earl, by the way.
What's good, Earl?
What's up, Jay? I know it was kind of, you weren't expecting this voice from Madison, but We're gonna go ahead and do it anyways.
We're here together. He's just hogging the Bible.
It's all
I was
good.
like, what?
It's all good.
So 19. Now the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem, and it happened when they had come to Bethlehem that all the city was excited because of them, and that women said, "Is this Naomi?" But she said to them, "Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty. Why do you call me Naomi? Since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me." So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest.
Cool. And so thank y'all. You see, it was really short, and that's how all the chapters are. And literally, it's just so much to unpack from this. And God's pen is super crazy. All right, so again, I broke it out into 3 groups. And so it's the first section we're going to be breaking down is what Key read, which is verse 1 through 5. And again, all of this was pretty much the context. So we get the context of what's going on. And so the first verse, you see, it says, in the days when the judges ruled, so we're seeing what time frame it is, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. So it's like we're getting the idea, the grand scheme of like what's going on. So again, you have Elimelech, that was the husband, and we're introduced to him. We're introduced to Naomi, who is the wife, and they had 2 sons. And so if you can look inside the Bible, and there's certain times where it pops up, especially towards the end, but when we're looking at the meaning of each other's names. And so Elimelech, I don't know who all can see that, but where I have it, and the meaning of Elimelech is my God is king. And so I thought it was really dope that his name is my God is king, especially given that he was brought up in a time where literally it's the most spiritual dark time inside the earth, like literally up until this point. And so you have all of these people who have no standard, they have no means of knowing what's right and wrong, and people doing their own thing. But you have people who have names that actually mean something that's very, very like important. And we're going to be talking about names a lot, because we might in these days and age just might give people names and think like, oh, okay, I'm just giving somebody a name because the name like sounds cool or it sounds cute or whatever the case may be. But back then, especially given like, you know, the context of where they were inside the Hebrew culture, everything was meaning based. And so everything was to proclaim what your actual child was going to mean to the earth. And so for his name to be, again, my God is king, I thought that was really dope. And when you're looking at names like Naomi, Naomi's name was pleasant. And so we see that, like, you know, God granted her with the name pleasant. We'll talk about what Ruth's name is later on, but we're going to talk about, you know, again, my God is king and then pleasant. And so they're living in a time of chaos, and we're shining a light on God's promise by seeing his name as this. Also, when you're looking at the name of Bethlehem, so what does Bethlehem mean? We've all heard Bethlehem when we're talking about Jesus. This is the birthplace of Jesus. This is where like the little manger was at. But Bethlehem meaning is house of bread. And I thought this was super dope as well, because of the fact that we identify Jesus as the bread of life. And going full circle about, again, how crazy God's pen is, they're dealing with a famine right now. So it's like they're in Bethlehem, and the Bethlehem, again, is the house of bread, and they're lacking leadership. They're lacking somebody of a savior. They're lacking direction. They're lacking spiritual guidance or even God. Like, they're just lacking. And so because they're lacking, ironically, there is a famine that's going on. And for those who don't know what a famine is when like you're literally starving. And so like they're literally starving, because there's no food, but they're also spiritually starving. So I thought that was pretty dope, and just how everything kind of ties together. And that's why we have to kind of read slow, because it's like everything makes sense once you kind of wrap it together. And so with this, you have the family, they're moving away from Bethlehem, which is the home for all the Israelites, and they're moving to a pagan society. And so for, again, those who don't know what a pagan society is, the pagan society is a place where they don't identify God. They worship many gods, and they have false gods and false prophets and all of these different things. And so the fact that Elimelech was able to move his family to this space, I have a question for that. But before I get to that question, what's up, Destiny?
I just wanted to say, I didn't even focus on the names while I've been reading this, and I just finished reading it today. I did focus when Naomi, Naomi changed her name when she called her a different name, but also how you said his name is my God is King. Elimelech's name means my God is King. I would just think about that. Someone named him. He didn't name himself. And I mean, we also don't know if he had an encounter with God and God changed his name, because we see that God does that a lot.
Right.
So think of the morals that he probably grew up with. If his parents named him, think of how he grew up. Think of how they raised him. So think of how he passed that on to his his kids. Look at that. And then if any of you know about Ruth, you'll see it. I won't spoil it, but her values and the way she acts, the family that she married into, based just on the father's name, how they must have acted and what she must have saw being around this family a lot. Because in those times when you were a woman and you married a man's family, you left your family and you went with his family. So just think about the values that she saw around this family. And something that someone said to me when I worked in this call center is, it doesn't matter if people are mean. I stay nice, because no one's going to want to keep cussing you out if you continuously keep being nice to them. So even if she was a Moabite woman, so, right? Wait, she was, right? Yeah. So with that, even if she wasn't, even if how Naomi said, go back to your gods. Think being around these people, the values that she saw, depending on how many years she was with them, how she could have changed inside if she wasn't always that way.
Wait. You gonna get into it?
Okay.
You gonna get to it. I'm gonna tap you back in on the second part, because you're gonna definitely dive into literally all of that. They're telling you a whole teacher, man. So yes, literally, and like Destiny said, it's just values. All these names and all of this is God ordained to these people. And so it's not something that was, again, by chance. They didn't just be oh, okay, this is a cute name. This is something that literally was in their destiny to have this specific name for a specific reason. And so with Elimelech moving to a pagan territory, which also were enemies of Bethlehem. And so if you're just thinking about just why did he actually go to this space, what made you go to this space? I have two questions. I have a question is, why did Elimelech leave? And it's not necessarily to be answered because we honestly don't know the answer. So we can kind of dwell on that, but it's either one of two things. He either left because God directed him to leave, which we don't know whether or not he was directed to go, or because he was fearful of the famine. And so my first point that I had was, we don't know, but there's an important principle when we do take matters into our own hands, which again, we don't know for sure if he was or not. We often make matters worse. And so because of the fact that we, again, don't know whether or not God called him to do this or not, he did leave a place where he was called to be and his chosen place to go somewhere that was completely contradictory to his culture, contradictory to his lifestyle, contradictory to his faith, quote unquote. And that first part is when we do take matters in our own hands, which again, we don't know whether or not he was taking matters into his own hands or not, we often make matters worse. Um, yeah, if when we do take matters in our own hands, we often make matters worse. So I'll give y'all time to write that down. And we even see kind of an example of how this has played out before when we're thinking about like just biblical context in Genesis 37 through 50, the chapters. So we ain't got to go there, but it's just context. We have an example of how, God directed Joseph's family to Egypt during a famine. And so he was actually he called their family to go completely away from their place of living to Egypt in order to be directed to Joseph. So that's just an example of how God could place him into that space. But the issue isn't moving, but it's the actual motive. Like, what is the motive of moving? And so if we are moving because God directed us to move, that's a good thing. And so when you're just thinking about your day-to-day lives, if God is directing you to be in these spaces, or if God is directing you to be away from the situation that you're in, then that's a good thing. But if we are moving out of fear, then that's a bad thing, because a lot of times that's what we do. A lot of times we actually go to places and we leave places, or we flee because we don't feel like God will provide or protect us in those situations. We feel like we have to take it on to our own selves to leave a situation or go a place because it's the most comfortable thing for us to do, or the best thing for us to do in our own minds. And it's more logical based. So again, for anybody that's taking notes, I said, if we are moving because God directed us, that's good. But if we are moving out of fear, that is bad. Key, I saw that your hand was up. I'm sorry, I was just finishing that point, but did you have a point as well?
Yes, but it's not really relevant. I was talking to somebody, okay, real quick. I was talking to somebody about Nick Cannon and all his kids. And I went on a rabbit hole and looked up the names, and he actually named his child Powerful, middle name Queen Cannon. And it's funny you talk about names and what they mean, but also you kind of already talked about it. I was going to speak on the whole being directed by God, but you got it. So
no, definitely, man. I mean, we make fun of Nick Cannon, obviously, or even just celebrities, because celebrities be naming their kids all types of wild things. But I mean, if they feel like they're placing that on a kid's life, who's to say that that's something that they will grow into? You know what I'm saying? It might be contradictory to how we look at names in 2021, but in 2050, that might be where everybody's name is, and they might get back to the root of how it was inside the Hebrew culture and stuff. And so, but
real quick, sorry, because it kind of, people probably thought he was crazy. Imagine quarantine, for example, and all of the people who kind of fled where they were living at and where they were comfortable. It could kind of be synonymous to this almost. But it's people are well, if you don't got nothing here, what makes you think going there is about to be smart?
Right.
At least work with a little bit that you got.
Right.
And even how Destiny mentioned that he didn't name himself. People he was going around town with that name. They're you really named that? That's wild. Your parents was creative, or, something stupid like that. But yeah.
Right. You ain't got no basic name. You got Elimelech. People are just looking at you oh, man. And it's crazy again, because when we get into, again, the names of Naomi means pleasantness, and Ruth means companion or a good friend. It's when you think about all of these names and how they literally live by their names, when you're looking at their stories, it's really just cool to me to look at the just the origin. And I think that that's something that's a cool icebreaker for all of you all, if you don't already know what your name means, to look up what your name means, and whether that's your first, your middle, and last name, and then just see if those traits are things that actually accompany your lifestyle and how you actually move and operate. So let me see here. So where we at? Yes. So again, if we are moving because God directed, that's a good thing. If we are moving out of fear, that's a bad thing. And the even crazier part is God can still use us when we make poor decisions, because when we take on ourselves to actually move the way that we want to move, we usually mess everything up. But God's will and our power and his power over our lives still reigns supreme. And even if this was done in fear, it shows us that our poor choices do not override God's will for our lives. And so that's something that we can always kind of like channel in and look at the fact that, you know, we make stupid decisions every single day, every single week, every single month, every single year, whatever the case may be. But God still has favor on our lives, and having favor on our lives, like Vance was talking about on Tuesday, is not necessarily just God picking favorites and saying, oh, like you're my favorite because you exist. No, it's the fact that God loves all of his children, and he's able to use all of his children in a mighty way, even when his children do wrong, just like a parent. And so again, context on the Moabites, they were descendants of Lot. So for those who are my Bible scholars, in Genesis, you have the story of Abraham. That's the father Abraham that we hear inside Bible stories and songs. And Abraham had a nephew named Lot. And Lot wasn't the best, protege for Abraham, and he was very corrupt, and he just did a whole bunch of things wrong. And so all of the Moabites, the people that this family is moving to, like they're moving into the city of the descendants of all of these people. And so you have just a whole group of people who are built on the backs of corruption. They're built on the backs of they're known for prostitution, and they're also known for child sacrifices. And so in this actual land, they sacrifice their kids to Molech, which is a satanic deity. And so this is what these people are actually like, giving their lives to. And so I thought it was just interesting that somebody that was named My God is King moved their family to a place that is foreign and also very contradictory to their lifestyles. And it just shows where they are in life when it comes to the Israelites. And so Israelites were even discouraged from marrying these people because they praise false gods. So the fact that this family had these brothers, and the brothers marry, I always call her Oprah because it just looks so close to Oprah, but Opera or whatever, what I'm saying, what her name is. And Orpah. Yeah, the fact that they marry Orpah and Ruth, is just crazy to me, because they're crossing their bloodline with people that they don't necessarily believe in. So it just shows how far away from their actual faith they are possibly at this time. In Ruth 1:4, it says she was married to a husband for 10 years. Oh, let me get Sydney in real quick. What's up, Sid? And again, for everybody that's coming in later, I know there was like 2 people that came in late. We were reading out of the book of Ruth. And up until this point, pretty much we've been talking about the fact that there is a family. It's like a family of a husband, a wife, and like 2 kids. They moved to Moab out of Bethlehem. Moab is like the enemies of Bethlehem because they just believe completely different things. They idolize false gods and false prophets and all of this. So the fact that they moved their family from the promised land of Bethlehem to Moab is just contradictory. And so that's where we're at right now. We're talking about how it's crazy that they actually did that. In Ruth 1:4, it says she was married to her husband for 10 years. And so the fact that she was married to her husband for 10 years, we never hear the fact that she actually had children. We're talking about Ruth. At this time, this was a custom to bear children, in the Hebrew culture, because the main objective was to have a strong lineage. And so the fact that she wasn't able to have a child out of this lineage with her husband was frowned upon, because you were looked at as if you're not fruitful because you're not able to bear any type of children to further your name. And so that's also another like sidebar context of just where we are inside the world when it comes to just how they looked at women in general. So for a woman like Ruth at this time and culture, she would have been a woman without hope in a future, no husband, no children, and means to carry her family line because her husband died. But this also showed the grand scheme of God, the fact that he still had a plan for her life. Like he was able to use somebody that was seen culturally as somebody that would not be able to be used by God, would not be able to be used in society and culture. And he still was able to choose her out of everything. But there was a reason why he chose her. And we're going to get into that next. And so now we're going into the second part, which Destiny was alluding to, and this is talking more so about Ruth's loyalty. And so inside this section of the story, we see that Naomi, who is the wife of the husband that moved their family to Moab, she actually dies. He actually dies. And so because he actually dies, she's a widow now, and her children also die. So she's super, super depressed. She has nothing to pretty much live for inside her life. That's how she feels. She feels like there's no point of living. My husband is dead. My children are dead. All I'm stuck with is my daughters-in-laws. She loved her daughter-in-laws dearly, but at the end of the day, she's not able to further her legacy again or her lineage because of the fact that she has no more children to offer to the world, and her children didn't have kids as well. So it's like her bloodline stopped. So she's super depressed, and she chooses to go back to Bethlehem, which is her hometown. And while she's choosing to go to Bethlehem, her daughter-in-laws are crying and like, no, we want to go with you. And she's like, I have nothing to offer you if you come with me. Like, even if I was to get pregnant right now, you will have to wait until the child is of age to even have a kid with that child. And you don't want to do that. So she's just telling them to pretty much go back to Moab, their hometown, and just find somebody else to be a husband for them because she can't do it for them. And so after they go back and forth again, the sister, she goes and she takes up Naomi on the offer, and she's just like, okay, I'm gonna go back home. But Ruth, she sticks through, and she's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Wherever you go, I go. Wherever you live, I live. The God that you claim, I'm gonna claim, which is going to what Destiny was talking about earlier, given the fact that there was something, even though she didn't have children during that time, there had to be a seed of faith that was planted into her during these 10 years to make her come from a society that claimed false gods, claimed false idols, all of this. And she actually was able to look at everything in a completely different lens where she can actually say, you know what, I don't want to go back to the hometown that I was at. I don't want to go back to my situation, my environment. I want to change my entire situation, environment, and actually look at your God. So she was able to really pledge her allegiance to God in this specific situation. And God was able to use that. Real quick, before I continue to go forward, is there any questions? Is everybody following me? Like, just let me know. I don't want to just continue to blow y'all up. What's up?
So Ruth, where she came from, her tribe wasn't supposed to be with the Moabite people, right?
Yeah, so Ruth, yes, Ruth comes from Bethlehem, and this is where all the Israelites are at.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
that's what
she cooked up with the Moabite, but then
Moabites.
they died, and then she went back to Bethlehem.
Yeah, so now she's traveling back to Bethlehem because she's just like, I have nothing to live for in Moab. I'm gonna just go back to my hometown. At least I know somebody in my hometown. You know, I don't know nobody.
I'm not Ruth, Naomi.
Naomi, yes.
Okay, but Ruth also is not a part of the Moabite people, right?
No, Ruth actually is a Moabite person.
Okay.
So that's why it's so even contradictory that that's her daughter-in-law, because it's like you have this group of people who are the promised people from Bethlehem. They move to a place that is pretty much the hood, that don't care about anything when it comes to faith. They celebrate false idols. They praise satanic things, and they hook up. So it's like now you're marrying the promised people with people who are broken people, and that was just frowned upon. So Ruth comes from that type of lineage, but in the 10 years that she's like been with these people, as far as her like husband and her mother-in-law and her father-in-law, there had to be something that was transformative in her life where she actually was like, you know what, no matter no matter where you go, I'm gonna ride with you and I'm gonna praise the same God that you said is an actual God. I'm not gonna praise the false idols. So that's where we are when it comes to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she was bugging.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is there anybody else have any questions or anything that needs to be clarified or whatever the case may be? Make sure that everybody is following. All right, cool. So in reality, if they were looking to remarry, it made no sense for them to go with Naomi. But when we are obedient to God, even when it doesn't make logical sense, God makes a way. And so we see that God actually makes a way for Ruth going forward. And we're about to see that. And so right now inside this time frame, again, we was talking about Naomi, who is the mother. She is just broken and she's just given up on God and everything. And so there's a contrast between the mother, who is Naomi, and Ruth currently. And so Naomi right now is super bitter. She's super hostile when it comes to God. She's just like, God, you caused so much pain on my life. You caused my husband to die and my 2 kids to die. And she actually changes her name to Myra, which is actually translated to be bitter. And she tells them to turn back she told them to turn back knowing they didn't serve real God. So she's telling them to go back to their land and serve all the false gods and prophets at this point. So she's not even trying to save their lives, knowing that those false prophets and gods exist, because at this point in time, she doesn't even believe in God herself because of all the pain that she feels inside her own life. And we see that even in our own personal lives. We can have grief, we can have bad situations happen, and we get into spaces where we're like, man, I don't even believe in God. You know what I'm saying? Like, God didn't show up for me like this. Everybody said that God would show up for me. Everybody said that God would do this for me and do this and do that for me inside my life. But I'm just not seeing any results. And all I see is pain. All I see is frustration. All I see is misery. And so God can't exist. God can't love me. And so that's how Naomi is feeling. In contrast, you have Ruth, who responds with faith. She pledges her allegiance. Sometime in this 10 years, like we said, she comes to know that the God of Israel is the God Almighty that we serve. And she leads with faith and trusts her actions when she does this. And she clings on to it. And so when we're looking at even the passage that she said, let me go to it in the Bible app. Where was that? In from 15 to 18, it's even in a sense kind of feeling like marriage vows that she's giving to Naomi, the mother, where she's like, your people will be my people and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. So it's like, for better or for worse, for rich, for poor, sickness and in health. That's the kind of like marriage vows that she's kind of giving as she's like pledging her allegiance to even Naomi and Naomi's God. And so I thought that was kind of crazy, because we just see how God shifted her even mindset when it comes to where she came from and where she is now. Yes.
Yeah, they call it a covenant. And back in the day, that was like when you keep your word, like you had to keep your word with people. And I think it's just so cool how it's showing her loyalty to people and like worshiping God. But then I was asking myself, like, dang, if I lost everything, I would be quick to be like, girl, this was fun, but I really gotta go. Because what I know, life was great back there. Like, I wasn't really stressed. And then as soon as I got linked up with y'all, it's not giving what it was supposed to give. But yeah, the idea of even how we have salvation, like the covenant we have with God, is so important that we can't really let whatever happens in life steer us away from that. That's all.
Literally. And that's what happens inside our day-to-day lives. Like, again, we let situations in the now affect our future because we can't look at the grand scheme. We look at the present tense, which is very fair, because again, the present tense is what's going on right now. Like, in all of those feelings and emotions that we feel in the present tense when we're hurt or we're in pain or we're suffering or whatever the case may be, dealing with grief, those are real emotions and real pain that we're actually dealing with. But we also have to look at the grand scheme of God doesn't open the door for things to happen inside our life unless he is either preparing us for something on the other side or trying to condition us again for the other side. Everything is long, like winded when it comes to how God thinks about our lives. And we just think in a very short time frame. It's even when you think about some of you all who used to get in trouble back in the day with your parents and stuff, like those were times where you was just like, man, I hate my parents, man. I hate my living situation. I want to run away from home, all of these different things. And you really felt that way as a 10-year-old, as an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, 13, whatever the case may be. But hopefully, after a while and after a time, you was able to get to forgiveness. And some of us can kind of look back at our own family situations and be like, dang, I remember when my mom said that you wouldn't get this until you get older. Or I remember when my parents said this about, how I would deal with this situation, or look at this situation as an adult. And we can have an understanding about it because it made sense, because it conditioned us to the people that we are today. And so I think that God does the same thing for us in every single capacity. No matter how short or how little the situation is, everything is meant to push us towards our destiny at the end of the day. So again, now we're at Ruth, from 19 to 22. That's when they're starting to go back to Bethlehem. So Naomi's like, well, I'm not going to argue no more with you. I've told you to go back to your hometown, but you chose to not listen and follow me anyway. So I guess I'm going to just tolerate it and have you come back with me. So this doesn't change how she views God. She still is moping. She still is mourning. She still is dealing with grief as she's going back to her hometown of Bethlehem. And they don't even recognize her because it's been so long. It's been 10 plus years before she comes back to Bethlehem. So the people inside Bethlehem are like, oh, shoot, that's Naomi. I ain't seen you in years. And when you get to verse 20, she's like, don't even call me Naomi, because Naomi again means pleasant. I'm not pleasant right now. Call me Mara. So she literally changes her whole identity because of how she's feeling inside this moment. And that's what we also can do in a lot of situations. We change our whole identity and we change our whole likeliness because of the fact that we're dealing so much with how we're feeling about a situation. We allow the entire situation to accompany who we are, and we now become the situation instead of allowing the situation to elevate us to another place. And so that's something that she does, and she allows it to just attack her and break her down to a place where now she can't even look past her hurt. She can't look past her pain. She is just soaking in it. And so that's just an example not to do that as she's going on. She says, again, this is verse 20, don't call me Naomi. She told them, call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. So she's lamenting. She's saying, God did this to me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? Because I'm not being pleasant right now. The Lord has afflicted me with all of these different pains and feelings. And he has brought me misfortune, pretty much at the end of the day. Destiny, what's up?
This might be a little long-winded because I want to add a different perspective.
Okay.
And it's not that Naomi is just bitter. She does have some bitterness to her, but think of how people are when they're going through a season of hardship. Not everyone has a good look on it and is calm and decides to be kind. Some people get a little greedy when they've lost. They start to think in a scarcity mindset because they think, well, when's the next thing going to come? Or when am I going to get more? And so Naomi she could have had a whole different perspective. She could have been like, you know what? I'm going back to my hometown. I know there's probably going to be some men there. I could take these girls with me, marry them off to somebody. But she had a whole different perspective. She was being selfless. She knew she was about to be, for one, lonely. She knew she didn't have no one to care for her. In times like that, God made provisions for widows. And that is something that I wrote down. Genesis 38:11 and Deuteronomy 25:5 speak on it, about how you're supposed to, the brother is supposed to marry the widow so that that brother's name carries on, but also so that when I don't actually know, I'm gonna say that for next time we get into the next chapter, because it's gonna come. But there are provisions made so that widows could be taken care of. Right. But we look at this time and we see that the children of Israel aren't even holding up the certain customs they're supposed to. So that's another thing that could have happened. Naomi could have been in this mindset like, well, will people do what they're supposed to do when I go back home? So I might need these girls. But she knew by telling them go on, she was going to be alone and she wasn't going to have much. But instead, and I have a learner's Bible, it says, even in her desperate situation, Naomi, this is for 1, 8, and 9, had a selfless attitude. Although she had decided to return to Israel, she encouraged Ruth and Orpah to stay in Moab and start their lives over. Even though this would mean hardship for her, like Naomi, we must consider the needs of others and not just our own. As Naomi discovered, when you act selflessly, others are encouraged to follow your example, which is what I was speaking about. Now, Orpah, just like you said, was like, yeah, all right, fine. You gonna tell me go, I'm gonna go. But Ruth was like, nah, I already done married in. I done been with y'all 10 years. And I don't think it was just something where I've been with you so long, I don't want to let this go. It was something of, well, I'm already alone. Why would I leave you alone? Mm-hmm. You're like family to me. Why would I do that? So I wrote down Proverbs 18:24, but it quoted Proverbs 17:17, which was, Proverbs 17:17, which says, a friend loves at all time, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. And when I think of the brother is born for a time of adversity, speaks on the brother marrying the widow. But a friend loves at all times. How many of us have friends that, I don't know about y'all, but I say this a lot because I've been betrayed by a lot of people and like really sabotaged. Like some people crazy out here. But to me, a friend is not just a friend. Like that's family. Like my ex-best friend, we walked in each other's houses. Like that's just how we were. Like we went in each other's fridge. We went in each other's rooms. Like that's just, hey grandma, like that's how it was. So anyways, going on. Also, I did Proverbs 18:24 because that one really related to this chapter the most to me, which was, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That's what this whole story quotes. Ruth is sticking closer than a brother. She could have left. It was law that she was able to leave, but she decided not to leave. Hence that one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. It could have went a whole nother direction. If Ruth would have never went with Naomi, there would be no Perez, which would be no King David. But she decided to go. She decided to be that reliable friend, and she stuck closer than a brother, which helped carry on this whole lineage. I believe there's a reason that God works out, and this is another thing. That's why I said this is going to be long-winded. God works everything out for a reason. The husband was supposed to die. The father was supposed to die. He died 10 years ago. Now, we don't know how old Naomi is. It doesn't say. Now, they be calling themselves old at 45, but you could still have kids at 45 if you know how to take care of your body, ladies. But Naomi, if it was 10 years back, she probably could have had more kids. We don't know that. But God works everything out for a reason. We don't see the end plan. So that was that. I hope y'all grasped that.
Thank you, man. Definitely the teacher. Well, exactly. The offer and pray, man, because just be wrapping it up, man. Just wrapping it all the way up. And that's true, because at the end of the day, like God's provision reigns supreme when it comes to everything. Like God's whole plan on our lives is just so completely like out of this world, where we can't even fathom how he could have even thought to have this lineage of father and brothers and all of these people die in order for Ruth to be able to even come back to Bethlehem, because Ruth again would have never got to Bethlehem if it wasn't for these unfortunate circumstances to happen, which is a message in its own self, in the fact that God allows grief and misery to happen in order to get you to a place where it's even greater than where you came from, you know. And I think a lot of times we get so comfortable and stuck in these places of, oh man, this is what I'm used to. This is what I know. These are the people that I'm used to, and these are the places that I know. And we don't allow ourselves to get hurt or have detachment or disconnect from these people, because we leech on to nostalgia and we leech on to the feeling that somebody gives us, instead of allowing God to say, okay, I have better prepared for you. And God always has better prepared for you in these circumstances and situations. And even thinking about just where we are inside the story, imagine being Ruth at this moment. You know, you left everything behind. Like literally, you don't have no family, you don't have no friends, you don't have anything. All you have is Naomi. However, you are the talk of the town, because again, you're a Moabite. And so everybody knows where you came from. Like Moabit, I'm sorry. Everybody knows where you came from. Everybody knows like what lineage you're from. You're not even supposed to be in this town. So people are eyeing you sideways. You knew that they was going to do this no matter what. And the only person that you come with is actually talking like this, where she doesn't even really like want to be in this space, but she just feels like she has to be in this space because that's all she knows. And that's all she has left. Key, what's up?
I just had a quick question. When you were talking, what was brought to my attention is just knowing what to put your loyalty towards, or who to put your loyalty towards. And I think Destiny kind of mentioned how she had friends in the past where, or I guess you, when God kind of shows you like, okay, maybe your time's up here. But my question for y'all is like, how would you be in this situation? Because if Naomi's supposed to be serving the God of Israel, right? But she's acting like, you know what, life is terrible, I don't have faith. Like, how would you have loyalty towards somebody like that? You know what I mean? Because she's contradicting what they've been believing and worshiping for 10 years. So, I mean, part of me is like, if I was Ruth, I'd be like, girl, I don't know if you're really matching up with what you've been proclaiming to be, but then she still has, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. And anybody really like speak on that, because I don't know if y'all ever been in situations where you just thought so highly of somebody and they disappointed you, or they went through something and now they just feel like they can't, like, you know, so they're contradicting everything that they stood for. Like, have you ever been into those spaces, or how would you have responded as Ruth in this situation if you're coming out of the place that you've known, going to a place where you don't know anybody with your mother-in-law, and your mother-in-law is acting this way and you have nothing to literally like hold on to? Like, how would you respond in these situations?
I'll go. So I don't know how I would respond per se, but I'm thinking the reason that Ruth really like stuck beside her is because she kind of knows what she's going through, being that she lost her husband too, right? Then Ruth loses her husband. So it's like kind of like what Destiny was saying. It's like, okay, why would I leave you? And I know exactly what you're going through. So I think maybe they bonded on, well, she felt more connected to Naomi on that level. So that's why she stuck beside her. I don't know. And then I don't know how much of the religion that Ruth knows about, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, she married into the family and they, you know, worship God, but I don't know how much she knew about it. So maybe she was just trying to tag along, like, let me see and find out more, you know?
No, definitely. How long would you have stayed, like, as far as you, like, if you was inside her shoes, how long would you have stayed?
I don't know. I guess I probably would have went, but then again, like I probably would have already had that mindset, like, dang, she didn't even want me here, but here I am trying to go with her anyways, and then I gotta stay with her, and she just moping around, like, I don't know. So I guess as long as I could try to help encourage her and see if I could see any change of, well, if I can make her change a little bit. Not make her change, but make her feel better. But if I can't do that, then I don't know. I probably would leave.
Definitely feel it. Anybody else want to speak on just everything up until this point? It doesn't even necessarily have to be the question, but it can be anything. Do you relate to any of this, or has anything stuck out to you as we've been going forward? Feel free.
I want to say something, but it's not answering the question.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, Molly said, can you repeat the question first?
Go ahead, Key.
So my question is like a two-part. The first part is, how do you know who or what to put your loyalty towards? And then say with Ruth's, for example, Naomi was supposed to be like not Jesus follower, a God follower, the God of Israel. But in this moment, she's not matching up, like what she's saying and her demeanor and how she's acting isn't really matching up with the whole God thing. So if you were Ruth, would you stick it out with this person? Like, would you remain loyal to Naomi, or would you be like, you know what, actually, I gotta go because a lot's happening here? Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yeah, so you said the first question was, how do you know what or who to put your loyalty to? So yeah, so even starting off with that, like, what are some things that you put your loyalty to, or people that you put your loyalty to, and what are the characteristics that make you do that? Like, what causes you to like put your loyalty to like said person or said things?
Is this open to everybody?
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna say I definitely look at patterns. I definitely look at the person's heart. You can tell somebody's heart, like when things happen quickly and they have to make quick decisions. I pay attention to things like that. But then I was gonna overall say Ruth has been with Naomi for 10 years. And it's kind of like a farmer. If you've been farming on a farm for 10 years, it's been going good. Then one season your crop is dying, it's looking bad. Do you just say, okay, I'm done being a farmer and walk away from the whole farming thing? Or do you say, okay, maybe like it's going to get better? I think that's the way Ruth is looking at it with her loyalty and everything like that. I think she's seen the best of Naomi, and now seeing her down, like her husband died, her 2 children died, like she's just not going to bounce back quick from that. I feel like she sees that. And Ruth's husband died too, so she's sad too. Like, it's not just Naomi who's sad. They're sad together. And I think it's good that she pulled with her in that time and decided to like walk with her down that path when they're both like having to totally shift their lifestyles, and she's going somewhere totally new that she's never been.
That's good. That's really good. Anybody else want to speak?
I'll say something. And then I'll say the other thing I really wanted to say, which was just a verse. For me, I think now that I'm like, fully in the Lord, like when it comes to certain decisions, like about like what I do, like when there's things that you're supposed to pray on before going into it. For me now, like I look at who that person is, how they are. Like I can't be friends. I can't yoke myself along with you if you don't follow God and full-heartedly, because it'd be some people who really half-hearted out here, because you might steer me the wrong way. Even if I'm good in my faith, like you might do something, I'll be like, well, with God, is that okay for me? Well, they're doing that. Like if I question a lot of things. So for me, if you're not fully living your life according to God's like faith, because I don't want to say law. I'm not trying to be a Pharisee out here. We all have different convictions, and I can't put my convictions on you. You might got different convictions. A sin for me is not a sin for you. But if I know you're doing things that I know that God just don't approve of, I probably can't be friends with you, because it won't work for me. And I don't know how to make y'all understand that. That don't mean like I'm out here judging people like that, but I just can't. I don't know. I can't be friends with worldly people. And I mean like worldly people, like overly sexualized people. Like a lot of females nowadays are very sexualized. And I like to counsel, but I can't be friends. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. That was a hard one. But anyways, also, I had wanted to say something, Jay. It was something you were speaking on about Naomi. I forgot exactly what you had said, but it reminded me of something I was reading in Luke. It's verse 1, it's chapter 1, verse 23. Oh, dang, no, it's not. What is it? It's chapter 1, verse 25. And that's like when Mary finds out from the angel that like she's about to have Jesus. And I'm reading the NIV, that's why. She said, but she was like, the Lord has done this for me, she said. In these days, he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people. I've been reading God's word. And basically, Mary was saying, like, look at this. Like, my people, before they were ashamed of me, now God has given me grace. And that's what's about to happen with Naomi. Like, these people were probably like, dang, girl, you done lost everything. And I ain't gonna give no spoiler alerts, but we're gonna get to a chapter where somebody was saying a little something, something. And then they probably like, dang, maybe I should have married that girl. Yeah, that was what I had to say.
No, definitely, man. I can't wait to get to those next like couple chapters for it to unravel. B, what's up?
I just wanted to like echo the sentiment that can y'all hear me? Okay. I just wanted to echo the sentiment that I feel like Ruth was just kind of sticking with Naomi through like a hard time. And honestly, like we've all like maybe not been through like something like that, but I feel like we've all kind of been through a hard time where we felt like we needed somebody and we were just kind of like felt hopeless. And so I feel like that was kind of what she was going through. And it was kind of like not necessarily a test, but like just kind of like seeing like who actually is there for her, because at the end of the day, she did lose a lot. She lost her whole family. So I feel like she was just kind of trying to see, you know what, let me just take this off because there's nobody around me. I feel like she was just trying to see like if there was like any kind of hope, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, she did lose like her whole life. So I feel like she was just trying to stick in there. And then also to the point of what we look for in terms of like people that we could trust. I think that was the question, right? I feel like I just look like somebody was saying before, look at patterns of what people do in the past and like how they treat other people and how they treat strangers a lot of the time, because at the end of the day, like how you treat somebody you don't know tells a lot about your character and like whether you're somebody to keep around. And so I feel like just looking at how people act in terms of certain situations that are thrown their way, and also different kinds of people that are thrown their way too, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And you're right. Like you have to kind of like gauge how people are looking, even, or gauge how people move even when people aren't looking. And I think a lot of times once you do that, you'll be able to see the heart of somebody else, because again, like the actions that you do are like echoing your heart. You know, however you move, whatever you speak, whatever you say, whatever you do is just showing like on full display what your heart posture is when it comes to just people and then just your own personal life. And so I definitely feel that. And
can I add another comment real quick?
Sure.
I also feel like going back to the whole like meaning of names, I don't know if this is like a spoiler, but like the meaning of the name Ruth, you know, like I don't know if y'all know what that means, but I feel like she was just kind of like how I said before, like I feel like names are like prophecies, and so I feel like she was just kind of fulfilling like what her actual name meant, if that makes sense, and just trying to be who she actually was, because
Right. And she had, and in this time frame, they had to know what their names meant. So, you know, again, for those who didn't know, Ruth was a great companion or a great friend, you know, and so that's what she was doing. And that's what she like, you know, showcased in this moment specifically. Like she could have chose not to live up to her name at all and just would have been like, you know, girl, I'm gonna leave you over here. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm gonna go over here. But she chose to stick it through even when it was unconventional, even though she knew that she was gonna get chastised for it and everything. And we're about to wrap it up right here. So as she's going back to her hometown, Naomi is coming back to her hometown low-key worse than she left it. She left it where there was going through a famine and they didn't have no food. Now she has no food and no family. So she is in need of both family and food, and she's desperate in these situations and hopeless and bitter through all of this, because she's like, you know, I trusted you and I thought that you was going to provide when we went out this way and you did not. And with Ruth 1:22, the 22nd verse, it kind of teases hope. Like, you know, God kind of shows a teaser of hope because they're arriving in Bethlehem just as the barley season was approaching. And so like you can even see just a little small glimpses that God shows that he's able to give you a sense of life even in hardship. Like they're coming into a time frame where, again, she doesn't know that Bethlehem has food or anything. She's only going back there because of the fact that that's all that she knows left. But the fact that they're coming into this time just as the barley season is approaching, that was not planned at all. And so that shows that God's timing is always perfect. And now we see a juxtaposition of the 10 years that she's lived inside this space of not having any fruitfulness going inside this environment to going to a place where it was supposed to be non-fruitful, but it's showing that fruitfulness is about to emerge through all of the situations that she's about to see in Bethlehem. And so, yeah, we're going to drop a pin at it right there. That was the first chapter of Ruth. Hopefully it was an easy read for y'all. How do y'all feel about the story? Do the story compel y'all in any type of way? I want to hear from anybody that hasn't spoken. So that's like a Ray, a Theo, a Nash, a Nancy, whoever. How y'all feel about like this whole story and in general? Anybody? Yes, Ray, what's up? And then Theo after.
I put it in the chat already.
Oh, let me see. Oh, you said Holly from Elevation Worship recently had a sermon on the women supporting women and being a godly woman. And this story reminds me of it. Definitely. And like they also said, it's a reflection of the importance of community. Community definitely is something that's important, and God calls all of us to have community in these situations. Ray, you back? What's up?
Sorry, I was like going to the messages and I swiped out.
Mm-hmm.
But I put it in the message and it's the same thing. It's just the story reminded me of like having a community and not being alone in your journey. And of course we have our community like Bible study and church we go to, but like Destiny said, like surrounding yourself with your friends who are like-minded and walking in the same path that you're walking in. And so the sermon from Holly Furtick talks about that. And I thought it was really good. So I shared it in the message. But
yeah, no, definitely. And like I said, echoing what y'all said, you and Day, specifically community is important. And there's different things that contribute to them having a strong community. Like that was years that they put together as far as knowing each other. They come from two different backgrounds, but they were able to coexist in the space for 10 years and actually get to know each other and actually be able to lean on each other in hardship and be able to like confide in. Just realizing that at the end of the day, nobody is perfect. You know, Naomi was not a perfect friend in this situation to Ruth, even though Ruth was suffering just as much as Naomi was. But at the end of the day, we have to realize that people are flawed and human, but that doesn't mean that we leave them out to dry just because they're in a situation where they can't, cope the same way that we might want them to cope for us. Theo.
Just with me, one of the early points you made about like, taking matters into your own hands, could make it worse. And then, like I just like really just like moved across the country, and you know, just doing business with a friend back at home. And you know, he kind of you know, kind of turned on me, and I think that was a sign for me. You know, the little bit that I did have, you know, connected back to home, is just time to, you know, just let it go. And I didn't make a big deal about it or anything. So in that way, you know, that was kind of right on time and kind of like fit right into my path.
Facts. And it's crazy that, you know, like being with this friend since like middle school, you know what I'm saying? Like that situation could have happened from sixth grade till, you know what I'm saying? Like we went to college and all of that. But the fact that it happened specifically when like you are moving to, you know, you in South Dakota, you know, so it's like, that's a completely, you know what I'm saying? Like that's not on accident that like that played out the way that it played out in the
Right.
timeline, you know what I'm saying? So he knew that, you know, you can't connect to the same type of people the same way, and certain people are more so anchors than balloons, you know what I'm saying? And they're like keeping you like grounded versus like allowing you to elevate to places that you're supposed to be. Yeah, man, that junk crazy though. The junk is crazy.
Yeah.
uh Anybody else?
Yeah, y'all, definitely. This is my first time here tonight. Thanks, Jay, for the invitation, bro. And I just love what you guys are doing, and just seeing godly people come together. It's really beautiful to see. And just with this whole story of Ruth, I'll be honest, like Ruth is not one of those books that I spend, you know, hours reading or all throughout my life. I think I've always revisited Proverbs a million times, John a million times. But Ruth is one of those books that I kind of hear about in sermons and might refer to for a couple of scriptures. But as we're diving deeper, we're not to, everybody been saying not to spoil it, but you know, we are kind of reading into the bloodline of Jesus and the lineage of Jesus. So we're seeing the family that Jesus chooses to come out of, you know, the Son of the living God. And what you see here is like reality and real pain and real suffering and real issues, death, you know, drama, children, you know, just everything is involved here, and sisterhood, and just so much, you know, that is coming. And so I think it's really interesting diving within, you know, this book with you all. I didn't even realize Ruth is so short. It looks like it's only a couple of chapters. So I'll definitely be tuning in with y'all just to get through it. And God forbid if I miss a night, then I'll read it on my own, because I think, you know, there's definitely a lot of power there. So just commend to you guys and on your Christian walk and your personal walk with Christ, as well as with, you know, this ministry. So thanks
Love,
again.
my boy. Appreciate you, man. And like you said, like Ruth is the great, you know what I'm saying, of Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying? So the fact that this simple decision that she made, like ushered in the ability for her to have literally like the bread of life come, you know, out of her lineage. Like that wouldn't have been that way if she chose to go left, but she chose to go right, you know what I'm saying? And that just is, again, another reminder just to everybody that your decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis really do matter. Like every single decision that you make can alter the reality of where you go in the future. And I don't know how many people are like Marvel fans, but like I've been watching like the TV show like Loki, and they be talking about like the multiverse and all of this, and it's like everything is just so connected and interconnected to the timeline of where you started, what you do, and how do you alter that timeline. And so just being able to have a consciousness to know that whatever you do in this life is going to affect not just you, but your grandkids, grandkids, or whatever the case may be. And so you want to be able to just be fruitful with your own personal life, so you don't necessarily be a bad byproduct of, again, like you B just said, the butterfly effect. And yeah, man, that's pretty much it, man. Zay, what's up with you, my boy? If you want to see like the recap, it's on the YouTube, so you can like, you know, play that back at any time. You good, bro? You good? Yeah. So we got it on the YouTube, the 1800PRAYFORME YouTube, so you can just play it back at any time. But we're going through the book of Ruth, and we're going to be talking about it the next 2 weeks. So it's only 4 chapters, so you know what I'm saying, we're gonna fly through it.
Okay, say no more.
So
YouTube now.
Oh, for sure. But anybody else have anything closing wise as we're continuing to wrap it up? Anybody else got anything they wanted to say? We good?